What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Living in Bremerton podcast. I'm Cassandra Lopez. This is my business partner, Darren Rivers.
How you doing?
Yeah, today we are doing a podcast on the top 5 questions that we get most frequently when it comes to living in and around Bremerton. And these are based on basically Google rankings, like how we come up with these questions. So this is actually what people are like putting into Google, searching, and so we thought we would just make a video out of it to make it nice and neat and one-stop shop all in one place.
It's a lot easier to answer the questions that we know people are asking versus trying to come up with stuff that we think they may want to know about. So this is coming basically from our audience.
It is, and we're always open to ideas. So like if you guys have specific questions that we don't address and you want us to do a video topic on it, of course, put it in the comments or reach out to one of us directly. But yeah, I think this is a good place to start.
Let's get started.
One of the first questions that we're going to address that we get so much, because rumors, is Bremerton, Washington safe? Or is it a safe place to live? Or what is the crime rate? Kind of all-encompassing in one question.
Which is a really difficult question to answer. Because it's very subjective, right? I mean, what is safe to one person may not be safe to another person. What kind of crime are they talking about? Are they talking about some vandalism and maybe a car theft here or there? Or are they talking about violent crime and, break-ins and things like that? And crime happens everywhere, right? I mean, it doesn't matter if you're in Beverly Hills, if you're in Compton, it doesn't matter. There's some sort of crime no matter where you go. So it's really, like I said, it's really subjective, and it's a very difficult question to answer because what may be considered safe for me and my family might be different for you, and my standards might be higher or lower. You just never know.
Right, and it's all like there's sites you can go to like neighborhoodscout.com or niche.com where they have stats and they have demographics like that, and I think one of those sites will actually break down the type of crime. So it'll say petty theft, like package thievery from your porch kind of stuff, or somebody stole a garden planter out of your front yard or something like that, to the like really significant, now you're doing time crimes, right? And it breaks it down like that. And just to give you guys a feel for Bremerton, like I've lived here for 23 years. I know for sure, like we don't have gang violence. There's no gangs. It's not like down the road in Tacoma where certain parts you really do want to stay away from. That's a different video for a different time.
That's a totally different ballgame there.
I have 3 kids. I've raised my kids here. They're in schools here and stuff. And I definitely would not have stayed here and raised my children here if it were, crime central, drug central, like all the rumors are going around.
Right. Well, so when I get asked this question, I try to put myself in their shoes and what they're really talking about. So, I kind of like, okay, would you feel safe walking your dog around the block? Would you feel safe about if you have kids that say want to ride their bikes to their friend's house a couple blocks away? Would you feel safe in that regard? Again, it's still subjective, but that's kind of where I try to go with it. I think that's what most of our clients are getting at is true safety versus some of the, crime sucks, and it sucks if your mail gets stolen, but that's not a violent thing that's going to cause harm to your person, right? So that's what I kind of try to look at. And again, it's not for us to say, yes, this is safe, or no, it's not. We try to give you all the information so you can make the educated decision and what's right for you and your family, and if that's a place that is acceptable to you.
Right. And like, as in the capacity of real estate brokers, we're actually not allowed to tell you if a place has high crime or not high crime or whatever, which seems totally counterintuitive, because if you're purchasing a home, like, the location's the one thing you can't change, so you want to make sure that it's in a place that's acceptable to you. It's just an unfortunate caveat to the licensing law that we have to abide by. So this is why we do provide you like public data sites like the niche.com, the bestplaces.net, the neighborhoodscout.com. Also, you're more than welcome to call Bremerton PD or Kitsap County Sheriff's Office and ask them stuff. And this is all, these are the resources we're supposed to provide you and tell you. Otherwise, we're steering, and that's the S word in real estate. We're not allowed to steer people. Basically, that means helping you select a neighborhood or deselect a neighborhood based on a certain demographic or a certain statistic.
Yeah. So our job is to give you as much information as possible, help you make those decisions, but we just have to be careful on how we word it.
Yep. So, okay, let's move on to the next question. Well, this is very apropos for the last several days is how's Bremerton weather?
Again, this is like subjective, okay? I mean, if you're coming from Phoenix and you're used to 345 days a year of sun, well, it's not 345 days of sun.
It's going to
here.
be a culture shock. It's going to be a culture shock. So the last several days have been mid 40s and raining. Very typical for this time of year. It is late winter, so that's not out of the ordinary. So we don't get as much rain as everybody thinks we do. So if you were to look at Seattle, which is very near, it's 12 miles away from here. Actually, we're going to get to that in the next question. But if you look at Seattle trends, Seattle's not even in the top 10 cities in the United States for inches in volume of rain. I'm serious. If you look at
I know. I was going to add on
places
to
like
that,
Houston and like Atlanta in the South get more rain than we do. I think the difference is our rain is more consistent. So there's like more days of the year that it rains, but it's like a lighter rain. So it's not like heavy torrential downpours. Maybe we get one or two of those a year. But for the most part, it's a lighter rain, but more consistent days. And so it feels like it just rains all the time.
Can I give just a global umbrella look at this really quick? Okay, so I recently did a video on this myself. And statistically speaking, like Cassandra just said, we get less rain than Chicago, we get less rain than Boston, we get less rain than New York, we get a lot less rain than Miami. Where Seattle gets the bad rap is from about October to about April-ish. Mm-hmm. It's gray. Mm-hmm. It's just gray a lot. We don't have a lot of bluebird days in the wintertime. It's often gray, a little drizzly. Like, you don't even need to put rain clothes on, but everything's just kind of wet. The roads are wet. It's just kind of drizzly. We do get our storms, of course, where it actually is raining, but for the most part, it's just gray and damp more than most places. Places that I just mentioned, like Boston, Chicago, all those sort of places, when they get the rain, it comes in for a storm for a few days, and then it's clear for maybe 2 weeks. And we just don't have that. It's more gray. But the flip side of that is we have the best summers.
The best summers
known to mankind. We don't have much humidity. It's more humid than, of course, the desert, but it's nothing like the Midwest or the East Coast. I mean, nothing like it at all. We don't have bugs. I don't even own mosquito repellent. It doesn't, every once in a while it'll reach 100 degrees, but that is so rare.
So typical for summertime is like mid to high 80s. It's like perfect.
Here? I don't even think it's that. I bet it's low 80s. Go to your websites and search now.
But it's
really comfortable. It's really comfortable. It is truly the most beautiful place in the summers at all.
Short sleeves, shorts, and flip-flops.
And the other thing with the weather, we're pretty mild. Even in the winter when it's colder here, it's mild. I mean, you go to the Midwest and the East Coast, it's really cold. And here, it snows a couple times a year. It snows a couple inches, lasts a couple days, and then it's gone. I mean, for the most part, we're in the 40s during the day in the winter, and, upper 70s, 80s during the summer. Yeah.
But you go east of the Cascades into central and eastern Washington, 30 miles away, 50 miles away, they have the extremes. It's a totally different microclimate.
Yeah. It's high desert.
It's also not as green. It's totally weird. But the weird part is just the distinction and the difference of topography, not that like central or eastern Washington is weird. Just wanted to make that clarification. So yeah, summers are great. We have kind of a running joke with the locals here that summer doesn't start till the 4th of July, which is kind of true. I mean, June, it's still really cool. You're waking up, it's still 50 degrees until about noon. And, but July rolls in, July, August into September are gorgeous. I remember last summer we had the quote proverbial Indian summer into October.
Oh, we were wearing shorts and t-shirts in mid-October.
Yeah, and
great.
Darren's a golfer, and he's out on the golf course and just taking full advantage of the nice weather. Yeah. So yeah, don't let anybody tell you that we have total garbage weather. However, if you are coming from a really, really sunny state, like I did, I'm from California, you're from Southern California, I needed one of those like sun lamps in the morning time because we are a little bit higher in the hemisphere, and so sunrise is a little bit later, sunsets a little bit earlier in the wintertime, and so just for getting your circadian rhythm in line, like that sun lamp really, really helped me, and so I found that was a good, I don't know, do your thing.
I don't have a sun.
Okay, let's move to the next question. So where is Bremerton, specifically in relation to Seattle? And maybe we'll talk a little bit about the lifestyle differences too.
Okay, so as she mentioned, Bremerton is basically 12 miles directly west of Seattle. But it's not that simple. There's a big body of water called the Puget Sound that separates the two. So to get from Seattle to Bremerton, you either are taking a ferry, which there's some fast ferries that you can walk on, or take a bicycle that take, about 20-25 minutes?
The fast ferry is 25 to 30 minutes.
And then there's a car ferry that, of course, you can walk on or take a bicycle, but cars go on there and it goes about half the speed. It's almost an hour, 55 minutes or so. So that's one way to get to Seattle. The other way is you drive around. And so you drive down through Gig Harbor and into Tacoma, and then up Interstate 5, up into Seattle. And the drive with no traffic, what are you looking at, an hour and 15 minutes?
Yeah, hour and 15, hour and 20. But the caveat, there's never no traffic, like ever.
Yeah, Seattle-Tacoma area ranks pretty low as far as traffic rating goes in the United States, so you are going to run into traffic most likely on Interstate 5, just like any other big metropolitan area. Bremerton's kind of removed from that, even though it's 12 miles away. Since we're on the other side of the water, it's a totally different demographic. I mean, or not necessarily demographic,
like
but different
vibe.
environment. Yeah, the traffic, the hustle and bustle of the big city is not prevalent in Seattle. So I think that kind of ties into what you're talking about. Right. What did I say?
Seattle. It is prevalent in Seattle.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, we don't have major freeways over here. We have Highway 3, and Highway 16 down through Port Orchard. But for the most part, we're pretty spoiled in the traffic regard. Like we have very little traffic. We have pretty predictable Monday through Friday traffic leaving the shipyard, heading Highway 3 south through Gorse.
It's like a true rush hour.
Yeah.
It's not perpetual rush
Well,
hour.
it's a poor design because the freeway goes in between the water, so Sinclair Inlet, and then there's Sherman Hill, which is solid granite. So like you can't widen the freeway at all. So 4 lanes go into 1 lane for about 1/8 of a mile, and then it goes back into 2 lanes. But it's a nightmare. So all that to say, if you work in Bremerton or north and live in Port Orchard or south, you're going to hit that every day. The ferry, there's 2 ferry systems, like Darren was saying. There's the fast ferry, which is run by Kitsap Transit, and that's the walk-on only foot ferry. And then there's the Washington State Ferry, which is the drive-on, the car ferry, which you can walk on as well. So that's a couple ways, and that's how I always get to see. I mean, there's no sense in driving around unless there's absolutely no ferry running at the time that you need to get there, for your time and for your money and for your headache.
And the ferry's kind of cool. Like if you're just exploring the area, kind of tourism type stuff, the ferry's really pretty. I mean, you're out there on the water. Yeah, it's almost a must-do. The views are great of the Cascade Mountains one direction, the Olympic Mountains the other direction. You might get lucky and see some whales out there.
Yeah, we got orcapods in the summertime. That's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And then you have the Seattle skyline, for miles before you even get there. It's really beautiful.
It is. Mm-hmm. Yep. You can see all the stadiums and the Space Needle and downtown and
And there's the galley. Cool. So if you want coffee or snacks, or they have like pre-made sandwiches and salads and stuff, they serve beer and wine. So if you want to just have lunch while you're crossing, that's totally an option too. I know that right now there's several different places where ferries run, not just Bremerton. So there's Bainbridge Island, Kingston Edmonds, Southworth, Vashon, all of these ferries all over. I think there's probably 12 to 15 ports. Does that sound about right? I know I
don't do the ferry very often, so it's...
there's Whidbey Island, Port Townsend, they're all over, right? Some of them, the galleys are shut down currently, like the Southworth Vashon ferry to Fauntleroy, that's not running. So it just depends. But they'll have those updates on the DOT website or whatever, if you really want to dig that deep.
But really, we're talking about the Bremerton Ferry here.
We are talking about the Bremerton Ferry, which it's right now it's on an alternative schedule, so they only have 6 or 8 sailings a day versus the 20 that they used to have.
Right. COVID, man.
It was the COVID.
COVID is it's better. We're getting back to life, but man, it still has a negative impact on things such as the ferry schedule.
Yep. So right now, the alternative schedule, basically they are limiting the number of boats they're running. So the other boats they're doing overhauls and maintenance on, and hopefully they were saying by this spring, but now they're saying by this time next year. I would anticipate this time next year it might be back up to full running capacity, but you just have to check the Washington State DOT ferry site to get all your scheduling. Okay, moving on. What is Bremerton known for? What a vague question. I guess that depends on who you ask.
Well, I think this is a no-brainer.
Well, me too.
It's known for the Navy.
Yeah, for sure.
So Puget Sound Naval Shipyard is it's the biggest employer in Kitsap County. It's one of, what are there, 3 or 4 ports on the West Coast for the Navy?
There are 2 shipyards, but it's the only dry dock for nukes.
There you go.
So it's pretty exclusive.
Aircraft carriers come in here often. There's also a little Bangor submarine base.
Little.
Well, it's small compared to the Puget Sound Naval Shipyard.
It's not.
Here we go.
It's not.
She's the expert. I was not in the Navy.
Geographically, Bangor, Naval Base Kitsap Bangor is, I think, 2 or 3 times bigger in terms of acreage.
I meant population.
Oh, maybe.
Workforce.
Well, there's a pretty good civil sector on there, but then you go to lower base where all the subs are, and that's where all the active duty hang out.
So that's not very far from downtown Bremerton. It's maybe 7-8 miles or so.
Yeah, it's like a 15-minute drive.
15-minute drive from. So anyway, so what Bremerton is known for is truly the Navy.
Yeah.
It is what a large number of people move here because they're getting stationed here. Many of them end up making this their permanent residence and staying. But many get shipped off somewhere else, and 2 or 3 years later they're moving out somewhere else.
So the cool thing with all of that, because we have such a large military presence, we have 3 bases: Naval Base Kitsap, Bremerton, Bangor, and Keyport. Also with a couple of auxiliary bases. There's the fueling depot in Manchester and some other little places just kind of scattered around. But because we have that and the big civilian support that goes along with it, it really keeps our economy afloat and very, very robust. We feel the market fluctuations in terms of economy and housing a little less. We're a little more cushioned here because we have people who need to live here and people who are always leaving here. And so, the housing market, there's always people buying and selling. Rental market, there's always people renting.
The demand is always there.
The demand is there. Short-term rentals is a big thing here for traveling nurses and temporary order civilian guys and stuff like that. So all of that helps. All of that helps a lot. I always say, if the Department of Defense decided to close Puget Sound Naval Shipyard, I would probably move because our economy would be in the toilet.
And our population would go down by more than half.
It literally would. It'd be really eerie. I don't want to think about it, you guys. I think it's so foundational and fundamental to our area and our economy that it's got to.
But another thing that Bremerton is slowly becoming known for is an alternative place to live for people that don't have to commute to work anymore. So your dollar goes a lot further when it comes to housing costs over here. So, this is, question. I know. So we're going to just move into, how about we just segue into the next question and then I'll answer it. So what is the next question officially?
What's the cost of living in Bremerton?
So
that could be broken down into 2 questions.
Many things. So we were talking about housing, which is a segment of the cost of living, because really when you're in the greater Seattle, Tacoma, Bremerton area, goods and services are basically going to be the same. I mean, if you go to the grocery store and buy a gallon of milk in Seattle, it's going to be pretty much the same cost in Bremerton. Some services may fluctuate a little bit just because people working and living in Seattle is more expensive there. So maybe their hourly rate to do a service for you might be slightly increased, but we're really talking small. The biggest difference is housing costs for sure. Your dollar goes a lot further in Kitsap County versus King County or Pierce County. And that translates to your insurance costs are less, your property taxes are less. So
significantly. Like, for example, a house in Bremerton, we're talking bread and butter, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, quarter acre, right? Just a very simple family style home, which again, not steering, would sell for nearly twice as much in Seattle. The same exact house, same footage, floor plan, everything, same house would sell for almost double in Seattle because it's in Seattle.
Right. And so what I was getting at
it's totally bonkers.
This is one maybe benefit that COVID had is people figured out and companies figured out to allow people to work from home. So now they don't have to go to the office every day. Well, they don't have to live in downtown Seattle anymore because they don't have to walk over or drive to the office. They don't mind about a commute. Even if they have to go in twice a month, well, they'll handle an hour and a half drive only twice a month. They'll buy twice the house for half the price and work from home. So,
well, and the cool thing with that too is going back to our economy. Like, if you're in Seattle, the average wage in Seattle is higher than it is here in Bremerton or Kitsap County, and so they're making Seattle money, but spending it in Bremerton and Kitsap County, which benefits our economy more than Seattle's economy, which is, that helps everybody.
Yeah. So back to the original question, what Bremerton is known for. The Navy for sure, but now it's becoming known as maybe an alternative place to live that's more economical.
It's kind of like, I feel like Bremerton's one of the best kept secrets. Like,
if
you've never heard of it and you didn't even know we were on the map, 12 miles due west of Seattle, it's this beautiful hidden gem on the peninsula.
And if you're an investor and you want to buy some rental properties, that's the place.
Yeah.
For sure. You're always going to have clients or renters because of the Navy. For sure, and that's not going away, at least not anytime soon.
A lot of Airbnb, a lot of furnished finder over here.
Oh yeah, that reminds me. So another thing that Bremerton's really known for is its beauty. I mean, it's geographic. So there's water everywhere. There's inlets and bays and canals all over the place. So much of the area has really great views. It's fairly close to the Olympic Mountains. So the backdrop of the Olympic Mountains and the sunsets over that and the snow on them. A lot of people come just for a weekend getaway. And,
so just for perspective, I mentioned I've lived here for 23 years. I still stop at the side of the road and take pictures of like the mountains with the snow, or like one of my favorite views is actually from Port Orchard looking back to Bremerton. Looking over Sinclair Inlet, and then there's the shipyard, and then there's the Olympic Mountains behind, and it's just like so stunning. Like, it's almost, I can't believe I live here.
Yeah, it's
gorgeous.
Really pretty. It's really pretty.
Yeah, we have several hundred miles of waterfront, so any direction you go, there's going to be some sort of water outdoor activity, being fishing, boating, clamming, oyster digging, gooey ducks, all that weird stuff.
And the other thing, speaking of that, get away from the marine life part of it, it's easy to get away from town. So within 10-15 minutes you can be kind of out on some really secluded hiking trails, mountain biking trails. The Olympic Mountains are very close if you want to go camping and things. So unlike Seattle, where it takes a while, it's just any big city, it takes a while to get out of town. Bremerton is just so much smaller, you can be out of town a lot quicker.
Yeah, and leaving the city, you have like a 15-minute window to get out of town before traffic hits, right? So yeah, I actually have said that in previous videos that, 10 minutes from any doorstep is a trail.
Yeah. Like,
you can literally find anything. I joke that like you may have to get a dog just to start exploring all the trails.
Yeah.
But so so that kind of wraps up our top 5 questions. Really surface level. So if you want to get into like the nitty gritty of individual neighborhoods, individual housing stats for locations, because this is the obviously living in Bremerton podcast, but we serve Silverdale, Port Orchard, Seabeck, Poulsbo, all of Kitsap, basically, all of Mason County, all of Pierce County, and some parts of King County. Like, we are literally all over the Puget Sound. So if you have any questions about any direct neighborhoods, feel free to reach out to us directly, and we'd be happy to accommodate whatever questions you have.
What she said.
Thanks for listening. Bye for now.
Take care.